4 Democrats are running, but only one will move on to the general election in the race for State House District 51. The office represents residents in Kailua and Waimānalo, and voters will have to decide between candidates who have never served in the state legislature. Hear from Akao, Coby Chock, Scott Grimmer, and Lisa Marten as they take on the issues facing their district and the state. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of Election 2020 on Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Laura Yamada. Well, tonight we're focusing on 4 candidates trying to win the Democratic nomination for a State House District 51. Incumbent Democrat Chris Lee was elected in 2008, but is running for a state senate this year. The Windward Oʻahu district covers parts of Kailua and Waimānalo. The winner of the Democratic primary will face the winner of the Republican primary and the Aloha Aina Party candidate in the general election. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email, call, or tweet your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. All right, now to our guests. Lisa Marten grew up in Kailua and graduated from Kalaheo High School. She earned her master's degree from Harvard University and her doctorate at Columbia. Now, after working in Latin America and Asia, she returned home to raise her 2 sons and is the founder of the nonprofit Healthy Climate Communities. Scott Grimmer was born and raised in Kailua. After graduating from the University of Virginia, he launched an online travel business that he sold last year. It created remote teleworking jobs worldwide. Akao grew up in the communities of Enchanted Lake and Keolu Hills. He graduated from Kailua High School, Rutgers University, and earned his Juris Doctorate with a certificate in Native Hawaiian law from the William S. Richardson School of Law at UH Mānoa, and he is currently a Deputy Public Defender. And Coby Chock was born and raised on Oʻahu. He's a graduate of St. Louis High School and attends UH Mānoa. He lives with his family in a multi-generational home in Kailua with his grandparents. So thank you, all of you, for being here. As you can see, we're all abiding by social distancing and with our masks as well, a sign of the times right now. All right, so let's get right into it. And let me ask a question first that's relevant to the times we're dealing with right now. And Mr. Chock, let me start with you. Let's talk about public schools, because we're on the cusp of whether or not we should reopen. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel that Hawaii's public schools should reopen to in-person attendance next month?
At the moment, I don't believe we should reopen to public attendance with so many young people, especially in the lower grades, elementary. A lot of the kids don't understand the full issue that's occurring at the moment, and there's no way we'll be able to enforce social distancing and make sure that kids aren't coming into contact with each other, spreading it. And then more importantly, not so much for them, but taking it back to their families where they have their parents and kupuna, grandparents there that they can potentially infect as well. And it's much worse for elderly people as well. Aside from that, the reopening plan that's currently in place is kind of broad and isn't really specific enough to make sure that the teachers can really make sure that the classroom is safe for them, as well as other administrative people working and the students as well.
Mr. Akao, let's go to you.
Yeah, I think the guidance that was earlier provided by the Department of Education for the spring semester was we want 14 days of 0 cases. So for the Department of Education to change that for this upcoming fall, I don't know what's changed, what policy has been discussed that gives us assurances that the students that are going to go back to school are going to have the appropriate guidelines, but more so the teachers union, the teachers, admin, and the staff, they've been telling the Department of Education and our state government, we're not ready, right? And to pick a date, August 4th, well, that's when school was supposed to start. But that's an arbitrary date. It figures into their contracts and the school year, but that timeline doesn't match with the timeline for safety. So I think we really need to be cognizant that there's more at stake. We should focus on safety and healthcare before we take those steps. If we have the right guidelines, then let's get back to school. Not quite there yet based upon what we're hearing from the teachers and the staff.
And Dr. Marten, should Hawaii's public schools reopen to in-person attendance next month? Your thoughts?
I think that we do want to get back to in-person school as soon as we can, safely. I know that parents need the childcare desperately, and kids thrive in that environment. A lot of our schools, especially Title I schools, needier students, basically just lost the end of the year last year. They really didn't get anything out of online school. So we do want to work in that direction. However, I do defer to the principals and the teachers. They know their situation best. They know if they're not ready to be able to manage that. I do worry about the gap. A lot of private schools are going back, and that just shows those kids are not losing that education, right? And that gap, that gap grows. So I think that, it should be our focus to get the public schools back as well, and as soon as the principals and teachers feel they can pull it off.
And Mr. Grimmer, your response?
We need to open the public schools for in-person instruction on August 4th, and we need to do it in a safe way. We need to require masks of students and teachers and 6 feet of social distancing. Now, not all students might fit in their classroom at 6 feet, so some students might only be able to go a few days a week instead of 5 days a week. And of course, our teachers who have underlying conditions or who are elderly might need to work from home instead of going in person. But there needs to be an option for at least part of the week our students being in the classroom, because there are certain age groups and there are certain personality types that are not going to learn online. There are certain kids who don't have internet connections and internet devices. And if we leave them behind after months of them missing out on school in the spring, if we compound that with months more in the fall, they might never catch up, and those kids are our future. The other thing I want to say is that our public school system is 1,000 teachers short, and I have a plan to get back to full employment there. I've noticed that when we hire local teachers, they're more than twice as likely to still be teaching 5 years later in our public schools than when we hire teachers from the mainland. So I want to offer free tuition at the community colleges and at UH Mānoa to any local high school student who's willing to commit to 5 years of teaching in our public schools after graduation.
And we'll definitely circle back, no doubt, throughout this hour to talk about some of the other ideas that all of you have moving forward. So let's get a couple more questions in about what's sort of immediately happening right now here as well. And definitely what's looming on people's minds as well is the possibility of us reopening up to tourism sometime next month or sometime in the near future, of course. So let's talk about what's been happening since then in your area in particular, referencing a California couple that was arrested in Waimānalo for breaking quarantine orders. What are your thoughts? What do you feel, what more can be done that the state can do to enforce this order? And maybe I'll have you, Mr. Akao, start on this one.
Thank you. I think, there hasn't been enforcement. We try and set up things at the airport so that as soon as we have arrivals, we can track. But there's always going to be issues with that. When we have people fill out forms saying, this is where I'm staying, there's, from what I've been told, not always a strict verification of that. Are they calling either the hotel or the relative that they're staying at to confirm? And what happens that we've seen with that couple and others that have been violating our quarantine rules is that they're putting false residences, or they're putting places where they're not being verified. And the foolishness is that they've been posting about their quarantine trips and showing that they think that the rules don't apply to them. So we really need to beef up enforcement, and it's enforcement for healthcare reasons, not because we want to lock up tourists. We want to welcome tourists, but if we can't provide a safe place for them and they're not willing to follow our state's rules to protect the safety and welfare of our community, we shouldn't be welcoming those types of tourists. And we know there is good tourists. That's the tourists that we want to bring to our islands, those that are going to respect the rules, be respectful of culture, and our plans for safe reopening so that more people can come and enjoy our state.
And Dr. Marten, maybe I'll have you respond next about breaking quarantine orders and what more the state can do to enforce that order.
Well, I think it's particularly problematic when we reopen and you have hopefully most people testing before they come and some people choosing for whatever reason not to test. And at this point, people stand out a bit as tourists in a neighborhood or community because there's not a lot of them, but they could just blend in. So I think actually we need to move towards having specific locations where people quarantine that they pay for. We can have different types of hotels, high-end, medium, low, and have locations, you know, the way that it was set up. If they went to a hotel in Waikiki, in theory, they had a key that they couldn't get back in. And so there was some level of control and some management. If they're staying at vacation rentals in neighborhoods, there's no control whatsoever. So I think it's a privilege to come to Hawaii. And if people choose not to be tested, then they won't have the same freedom as people that do.
How about to you, Mr. Grimmer?
How do we enforce the quarantine? We show up and do spot checks randomly in person. Right now, the kind of honor system they're using, or calling every few days, or in some cases once during the 14 days, it's not cutting it. To keep the residents of Hawaii safe from people who are coming in and not quarantining, we need to show up unannounced where they said they are, and if they aren't there, then we need to go find them and arrest them.
Your thoughts, Mr. Chock?
Well, I know for a fact that some people we do have some spot checking going on. I know that because I have some family who came in and they were quarantining. They had people show up to the door. They had people call them more than once, actually. So our state is doing what they can with the resources we have available, because there's always a limited amount of resources we have, to make sure that we don't have tourists coming in and going about like as if COVID wasn't happening at the moment. But aside from just protecting our kama'aina from that through looking at tourists who come here and don't follow the quarantine, we also need to look at ways that we can reduce the quarantine. I know the state had something in place to lower the quarantine days so that we can have tourists come more freely. And at that point, we can also have less risk through testing before they arrive. And we need to make sure we can go back to that sooner. Right now, a lot of our small businesses are suffering. A lot of workers are suffering because of small businesses suffering and a lack of jobs here. And we just need to work and returning to normalcy here, because in the end of the day, there is COVID, which is a big issue, but there's also mental health issues that can come up with just a lack of money and lack of opportunity for our local people here. And we need to look at ways to shorten the quarantine period by testing before they arrive and after they arrive as well, so we can really shorten that quarantine period and get business going back here again.
Now, I definitely want to get to some areas, some questions specific to your area, but you're leading to, I think, one more worthwhile question related to COVID, because this is no doubt something all of you are going to be dealing with if you're elected. When we talk about, no doubt, the huge loss in revenue and tax revenue that we're going to be dealing with, what are your ideas to help the state make up for the billions of dollars expected to be lost in tax revenues due to the pandemic? And I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Dr. Marten, on this one.
Okay. Well, I think in 2009, we had a much smaller shortfall, and we made cuts. And that didn't work out for us. It made our recession deeper and longer than it needed to be. So this time, we've already gotten a lot of federal aid, federal loans, and they are pushing back paying the unfunded liabilities for the state retirement. So that's part of it, but I think we need to look at our resources, potential revenue. And as we use those funds to help us recover, we can start investing in areas that we would like to see our economy diversify into. So ones that I'm really interested in are ones that keep the money that we're spending anyways right here in Hawaii. So renewable energy and local agriculture for local consumption. So those are two areas. For example, there's almost 10,000 green jobs that are already identified, ready to go. We want to keep our shovel-ready construction projects going as well to keep jobs. Those funds are completely separate than our operational funds. They're long-term bonds and at very, very good interest rates, so we want to keep those going. It's nothing to do with our budget shortfall. It'll help our economy. And also, as we look at our tourism, we know that even before COVID, we knew that we were having issues with carrying capacity. The number of tourists was going up, the revenue was staying flat. And so it's an opportunity for us to rethink how we do our tourism here and try to make it more sustainable. targeting higher end niches, maybe higher spending.
So no doubt we're going to have some other questions related to that. I just want to make sure that I give everybody a chance to answer this and related to the additional layer of loss of tax revenue that we're dealing with. This will circle around, no doubt. But let me just make sure I get others a chance to answer it on the specific angle of this question. To you, Mr. Grimmer, ideas for the state making up all this lost tax revenue due to the pandemic?
Well, in the short run, we've got a huge budget deficit, and I would plug that deficit first with the hundreds of millions of dollars that the state auditor found in special funds that were either sitting dormant or had more money than they needed in them. And as an aside, when I'm in the state legislature, I'll make sure that we don't have hundreds of millions of dollars of unaccounted for money. I'll make sure that your money is spent where it needs to be spent. After that, we need to go to the rainy day fund and take that money. Next, we need to borrow from the municipal lending facility that the Federal Reserve set up. And the reason why I'm saying all of these things before I get to any tax raises, which I oppose, or benefits and salary cuts or furloughs, which I also oppose, is because I'm a student of economics and I saw what happened during the Great Recession. There were countries that went the austerity route, cut their spending and raised their taxes, and there were countries that kept the money flowing. And the countries that kept the money flowing are doing a lot better now, 10 years later, than the countries that went with the austerity route. So Hawaii needs to keep the money flowing, and when our economy comes back, we can pay back the loans we take now.
And to you again, Mr. Chock, making up the money lost in tax revenue due to the pandemic. Your thoughts on that?
So like Scott said, we do need a deficit spend. I mean, obviously we have a great budget shortfall at the moment, but we do have great credit ratings here in our state, and we need to take advantage of that. So many people are suffering at the moment, and by increasing our spending at the moment just to get people back to work and make sure we can keep money flowing through our economy, that will help us in the short run. Aside from that, we can also look at other revenue sources in the short run, such as legalizing some forms of gambling. I'm not sure exactly which forms at the moment, but by looking at ways that we can maybe just implement some kind of lottery system or some legalize offshore gambling or professional gambling here that can be televised, that can bring quick revenue into our state. Of course, we don't want it to turn into a Vegas over here, but at the same time, that would be one of the easiest ways for us to start generating more money. And in the long run, we need to transition to other sources of income as well, looking at increasing our capacity for renewable energy and really looking to become a leader in renewable energy. We have geothermal, solar, hydro, and wind power here. And we can really, if we invest in the right companies and bring them here by cutting some regulation in certain places and allowing businesses to expand, we can bring businesses here to develop and be a leader in renewable energy here in our state. And the whole world can use our state as an example of what can be accomplished in that field.
And just real quickly, if we can let Mr. Akao answer it first, and then feel free, Mr. Grimmer.
Yeah, I think a lot of the other candidates are nailing it on the head. It's not going to be a one simple answer that's going to get us to economic recovery. We do need stability. Part of doing that is covering budget shortfalls, using the money that's there, right? Instead of having them sit in special funds, use the rainy day fund, use the CARES Act money. Anything that hasn't been spent, we need to get it in an appropriate place for recovery and stability. As to areas that are going to help us recover, industries and economic drivers, we can't necessarily bring in something brand new. That's going to take a lot of money, a lot of investment, a lot of expertise to start up a new industry. So we have to look at industries that have already started to show that they're high growth in our state, whether it's diversified agriculture. Hawaii, for years and years before tourism became its mainstay of economic driving, is we were providing food and other resources that we're growing, and it was enough to satisfy not only our use, but we were able to export it. Now we've driven that to more of an export. We're sending the produce and we're sending our resources out and having money brought in response. So let's give those sectors some strength because they're already there. They've already planted the seeds. And also other areas that are high performance that just need a little push, a little investment from our state. TV, film, and movie production. We have a lot of that here. Our unique geographic location, our cultural connections give us a little bit something more than Hollywood. So using those areas to improve and fill the gap.
And I feel like I should have given Dr. Marten a chance to finish too, because we kind of ended up delving into a lot of different issues that no doubt will circle back around. So don't worry about that. But I do want to get to some specific viewer questions that get also more specifically into issues within the area and not necessarily related to COVID. So let's start with this one from Elma in Kailua. She says, what are your thoughts on ocean-related issues such as overfishing, illegal fishing, aquarium fishing? Maybe Mr. Grimmer will have you start.
Well, in Hawaii, our oceans are something that have sustained us for a long time and will continue to sustain us. So protecting them is paramount. And I think that illegal fishing, overfishing, and aquarium fishing are all short-term things that can cause a long-term huge harm. So I would oppose all of those so that we can protect our oceans and we can benefit from them for generations to come.
Dr. Marten, how about you?
Well, I'm a surfer. I spend a lot of time in the ocean, and it's amazing how clean and how vibrant the ocean life is with this break that we've had. But the fishing issue is, you will find fishermen that do not agree with science at all, feel that that the scientists don't know what they're talking about, and so there is a big disconnect between what fishing habits and what should happen. And so I think there has to be a lot more public outreach, public education. I know in, off Lanikai Reef, which is pretty healthy, we have, since COVID, we have a lot of night spearfishing. And they just can clean out the reef, right, all the sleeping fish. So it's very localized, but it takes a long time for it to recover, especially when you're shooting the herbivores that clean the reef. So yeah, I'm all about healthy reef, especially with climate change and warming oceans. Coral bleaching is devastating, but the coral can bounce back if the warming is not too prolonged, and they have those herbivores to help clean things up afterwards. So I'm all about control.
Your thoughts, Mr. Chock, on her question about ocean-related issues, overfishing, illegal fishing, et cetera?
Obviously, I'm against overfishing, illegal fishing. It's all natural resources. Once it's gone, it's pretty much gone, and we're not going to get it back. We need to make sure we take care of that now, and we can't wait any longer to take care of these things because really our future generations depend on that. And looking at what we have now, aside from just overfishing and the things that are damaging the reefs through overfishing and illegal fishing and whatnot, we also have other issues related to the reef with agriculture as well. Runoff has caused bleaching in a lot of areas because of fertilizers and pesticides running into the water, causing reefs to die. So we need to look at practices that are used in the agricultural side that we can adjust and work with the University of Hawaii at Mānoa to really work with these farmers to make sure that the practices that we're using are really sustainable for the long run in our communities here.
Mr. Akao?
Yes, I used to work as the Chief of Staff for the State Representative, who was the House Ocean Marine Resources and Hawaiian Affairs Committee Chair. We worked at length, especially in the recent years, in addressing aquarium fishing. But it's more than just aquarium fishing. Aquarium fishing had its own unique challenges about whether or not it's okay to commodify things just for sale, whether it was the yellow tang or some of these other fishes that they play a specific role in the ocean's ecosystem. Then we look at things like bottom fish, nearshore fishing, and then a lot of the illegal fishing or overfishing is coming from, trawlers from foreign countries. The actual limits for what is considered international waters versus, state waters, we've seen them play as close to the line as possible to not violate, state or federal law. But the effects that fish don't just stay in one place, they migrate. So when there's challenges to fishing in our marine monument areas, and we've seen that the federal government is pushing towards allowing that, saying, hey, the fishermen need more areas to fish. That's not true. They're putting profit above the sustainability of that resource. And that resource is, very critical to Hawaii's community, not just economically, but culturally, right? So there's the disagreement between, and I think Lisa was alluding to it, community members that are just trying to fish to provide for their family, and they're competing with corporations for resources. And we have to be able to balance that. But let's side on our local community first. Make sure there's resources provided so people can feed their families and take care of themselves.
And let's get to another viewer question here, and we'll take it from the ocean to the sky on this one, because if you think about it, when you think about tourism or activities in the area, especially in your area, there are a lot of different kind of crafts out there. If you get to experience the area, you kind of understand what I mean. So this is a question from Jason in Kailua. He's talking about aviation safety. So how would each candidate address the issue of aviation safety in that area? And how about you, Mr. Chock? Why don't we start with you?
So aviation safety is kind of a broad topic, I guess. But so on the state level, there isn't as much as you can do at the federal level, because it's like FAA would regulate a lot of that, and the airspace. And one of the biggest things, I'm not sure exactly what the question was touching on, but we have had issues with the military in Waimānalo with their Ospreys crashing in the community parks, as well as other issues with people shining lasers into the sky, which interfere with planes and helicopters and whatnot that we need. So we need to make sure we can regulate these things, especially with just anybody can get a laser and point into the sky, but we make sure we can track it back and hold people accountable for those things that can put other people's lives at danger and risk if we can't get to them soon enough. And in terms of the military, once again, that's like at the federal level, but make sure that these military planes and helicopters, Ospreys, are all being monitored and taken care of at their level, so we don't harm anybody in our communities.
And when you think about it, between the commercial aviation, the military, and also recreation, there's a lot happening in the skies in your area, and some more direct control and some not, to your point. But to the question, to answer Jason's question, who lives in the area, one of your constituents, your thoughts on aviation safety and trying to address it in some shape or form.
Jason, I'm going to give you an answer probably no politician's ever given you. I don't know. I don't know much about this topic. I've knocked on thousands of doors in Kailua and Waimānalo in the last month, and no one's brought it up. But I want to learn about it, so send me an email, scott@scottgrimmer.com, and tell me what we could do to do better in that area. The helicopters I've seen recently in Kailua were doing rescue missions on Kaiva Ridge, also called Lanikai Ridge, and we've had a lot of rescues there that cost the state a lot of money. Hawaii is one of the few places where you can get injured, need a rescue, and not be on the hook for it yourself. And I think we need to change that. We need to make tourists pay their own way so that if they're rescued, they pay the state back for it.
So I'm going to go ahead and pivot on a question here. And just so you know, if you wanted to answer on the previous question, feel free to tag onto your answer. This is just for the sake so we can get to some different questions as well. So let's turn to this, because I've gotten two questions now on the TMT. So here we go. From Laura in Kailua and also from David in Diamond Head, basically just asking what your stance and your opinion on the TMT is. And if you can provide some specifics, they would appreciate it. And we'll start with you, Dr. Marten.
Okay. I just want to go back to the last question just for a second. I'm guessing that Jason was asking about, we had a very traumatic event where a helicopter went down right in Kailua. And fortunately, nobody was hurt on the ground, but everybody on the helicopter was killed. And I think that was just a real wake-up for how close the tourist and recreational helicopters get to our town and are flying right over our airspace. And obviously, it could have landed. There was debris and burning. It could have been very dangerous to people on the ground as well as those who perished. On TMT, I feel like it's become a focal point for a lot of injustices over time, and for the fact that the Native Hawaiian community was not given a role in natural resource management, especially of a place that is very sacred to them. I feel that it's also, not TMT in particular, but the whole astronomy program, it's a source of economic opportunity and diversity and science. And the fact that UH overstepped its bounds from its initial permit and kept developing without a real master plan, without a real vision of where they were going, I think in order to get it back on track and have an honest conversation to see if there is a possibility of still hosting TMT, the management needs to shift out to a group that would include the university, include different key stakeholders, including the Native Hawaiian community, and just try to map out a more long-term vision for that location, what types of opportunities and educational for the local community it might provide, and what kind of access it can provide for people who want to do cultural practices there, as well as opportunities for environmental conservation, to clean up what is not needed.
And so I'll move to you, Mr. Akao, on this one here. Two questions here from both Laura and David on the TMT. And if you can provide some specifics, your opinion, your stance on that.
Yeah, I oppose TMT. The construction of the 30-meter telescope, not because of any fault that the company and the stakeholders who support it, they've followed the process because they're interested in providing an astronomy facility that can help further astronomy as an academic subject. The reason I oppose it is because what about the management aspects that Lisa brought up? And I felt like the University of Hawaii, who has been managing that property on behalf of our community, on behalf of Native Hawaiians, they haven't been managing the property in a way, and I don't want to call it property or even land as if it's just something that you can check a box and say, it has, and it has been shown time and time again by the community's response to what's going on up there that there is a level of sacredness. And for people to challenge, well, they weren't practicing up there. It's not about practice in the past. It's about practice that's a living concept. So I support the Hawaiian community on Hawaii Island that believe it's beyond time that we start seeing some recognition about what's going on up there. And when there's promises that we're going to take those prior facilities down because, they're obsolete, right? Let's take them down then. Don't just say we're going to do it and build more. Take those down, show it as a sign of good faith that they're trying to be responsible. And that's really not TMT as a company's responsibility, but they've been aiding in that to show that they're really trying to coordinate and do it in the right process. And going to the previous question, I want to answer that, I think... Briefly. A quick response about safety. I don't necessarily think it's the military. A lot of people complain and say that, we feel like they're not getting notice about when these aviation exercises are being done late at night, early in the morning. So I think having some notice, being respectful of people's time and space. But the commercial industry, those types of aviations, we need a bigger buffer so that they're not flying over residential areas, so that, and even though that's going to come from the FAA, from the federal administration, we need to work with our congressional delegation that this is a safety.
I do need to move on to let everybody get a chance to talk. So let's move on to the next one. And feel free, again, if you want to tag on, but if it gets too long, I might have to cut you off just a little bit. So let's move to this next question. We'll start with you, Mr. Grimmer. The question is from Gwen in Kailua, saying, what is your stance on Airbnbs in Kailua? And also had a related question having to do with illegal vacation rental problem in the area. So that's big discussion in your area, whether you're referring to illegal vacation rentals in the area or just Airbnbs in general in Kailua. Your response?
I think that entire property Airbnbs should be banned, and I think that owner-occupied Airbnbs should be allowed. I think the proponents of the City Council bill that banned all Airbnbs showed exactly what's wrong with Hawaii politics. They didn't get together and find a solution that could work for everybody. They said the problems with vacation rentals were noise and parties and crowds and cars, and those problems are alleviated when someone's on property. So I think that we need to work back and enforce the ban, which was also another problem with the proponents of that bill. They never had a usable enforcement mechanism, and we need to enforce the ban on full property Airbnbs and allow owner-occupied Airbnbs.
And let me turn it to you now, Mr. Chock, whether it be specifically to Gwen's question on Airbnbs in Kailua, and also kind of wrapped into that discussion about dealing with the issue with illegal vacation rentals as well.
So illegal vacation rentals is something that's been a big issue for our district specifically for a long time. And Airbnb is one of the reasons that we have that issue. They were openly marketing to a lot of families here and a lot of people here to rent things out. So the balance of short-term and long-term rentals became uneven, and next thing you know, most of the houses were converted to short-term vacation rentals. And, I support short-term vacation rentals, specifically for our local families. I believe the lottery system that was put in place unfairly gives permits out to certain people who can and cannot host short-term vacation rentals. And the issue with that is a lot of our local families who were just renting out one room, couple rooms, maybe they had a back cottage and they lived in the front. A lot of responsible homeowners, they were cut out of this because a lot of other people who had other properties got the permits and they didn't. And, a lot of people use these to supplement their income. A lot of kupuna use it to really just afford the cost of living here in Hawaii. And I would support making it legal for all local residents to host vacation rentals here, just to help them out and support our local families.
And your thoughts, Mr. Akao, on Airbnbs in Kailua, whether we're talking about legal or illegal vacation rentals?
I think I'm going to take a different perspective that, again, if we're allowing local families to rent out space, why should it be for short-term vacation rentals, right? If we're looking for, we have issues with affordable housing, we have issues with carrying capacity. So, I believe local families, they want to rent long-term, right? They want some stability if they're going to use that income from renting out a cottage in the back or a room, that they want someone that's going to commit to them long term versus having, inconsistent booking practices. And another problem that we've had is, are we going to make it legal? Are we going to acquiesce and say it's okay, as long as we tax it and regulate it, then it's fine. Then it's no longer illegal. We're legalizing it, and I think that's going to hurt our housing stock in the long term, because how are we going to recover those properties when, like Scott said, a lot of them are full properties and local families aren't able to buy and live in those places. So I think we really need to focus on enforcement. It's going to pay for itself, because if you look at a map of our district and go on Airbnb, you're going to see a shocking amount of vacation rentals there. And what has our state done to go and crack down and stop the overuse? We haven't done enough. We got to go shut them down if they're not following our state's rules in regards to that.
And of course, big question. So, Dr. Marten.
Yeah, this is something I've been very engaged in for more than a decade. And I really, I feel like Scott's comments are a real fallacy, repeating a fallacy that it's parking and noise. It's not parking and noise. It's the character of the neighborhood. It's replacing neighbors with people who are not neighbors. And it's decreasing the housing stock. When I was young, me and my peers, my siblings, we didn't just stay and live with our parents forever. We got to move out. Why? Because there was places to move to. There was cheap. We lived in those garage units and those ohana units and those extra rooms. Those extra rooms and ohana units, they were for elderly people, for single people, for people with low-paying jobs like firefighters and teachers. Those are the people that need that housing within our community. And it's a fallacy to say that it's just local families needing a little extra that are going to rent out those rooms. Our property taxes are about the lowest in the nation because we fund our schools from state taxes instead of from county taxes. And as a result, it's extremely appealing to investors to come here and buy. And I don't care if they're coming, to actually live here or not. Either way, they're distorting the market. If they're coming and bidding on a property with an expected cash flow, they're able to outbid people that just want to live there. So I think, to say that we are going to help the haves, the property owners, at the expense of everybody who doesn't own property and may never be able to afford property in our residentially zoned areas that are for them, I don't think that's right. We do have places that are resort owned, and people can own vacation rentals there. If that's their dream to have that kind of business, they can do that.
Can I go back on that same question? Mm-hmm. So I realize that is an issue, foreign investment. We need to really crack down on foreign investment coming into our state, because foreign investment is really what's skewing the housing market here, reducing the amount of homes we have available to our local residents, which thereby raises the cost of housing here. But I've canvassed and spoke to many people who here, they live in the house, and they do rent the room out or 2 rooms out to short-term renters. And the reason they do that as opposed to having it open to long-term rentals and whatnot is because they have family who have been pushed out of the state by the high cost of living, and their family comes back to visit once in a while, and they live with them in the house at the time. If you have a long-term renter, that's not an option, because obviously you can't kick a long-term renter out just because you have someone visiting. And I know a lot of houses as well who were renting out one room or a couple rooms or a separate unit that just aren't renting it out anymore at all because of the new law that's been put in place by city and county.
And I'm guessing, Mr. Grimmel, you want to respond?
Well, I think that it's important that we distinguish between the people who are in your neighborhood and are your neighbors and have been there a long time and want to rent out a room or their ohana unit. As far as I know, the arguments against the rental houses is the noise, the parking, and it changes the character of the neighborhood. That's what you said. It doesn't change the character of the neighborhood if it's the person who's been there 20 or 30 years and they're just renting out a room. That's still your neighbor. So I think it's important that we distinguish between the two types. I can see many shades of gray, not just black and white. I can make deals that benefit everybody. That's what I've done in my life in business. I don't need to say we need to ban everything, because I don't think that's the way that we move forward as a community.
Let's take this question a little bit bigger, and again, if you want to tag on a little bit, feel free. But I think this is a good question from Joel in Hilo, and it kind of goes to a couple other questions about looking at tourism in the area. And there's another question I kind of wanted to get in there a little bit to partner with this, and talking about Bellows Beach Camp, how it's closed right now, and we're hearing that green sea turtles nesting in there for what scientists believe is the first time ever, and some say it's because of the lack of people in the area. And so it leads to you thinking about how are we looking at these areas that are you're representing, and I'm going to turn it a little bit to Joel's question here and asking if the candidates feel that a major reset and restructuring of tourism in Kailua and also in the state as a whole, considering the effects of COVID, is possibly truly needed at this time. And maybe, Mr. Akao, we'll start with you on this one.
I think we're already seeing a reset, and whether it was forced due to COVID, I think it might be a blessing in disguise, at least for this industry, to understand just how fragile it was, that we couldn't have kept going. And as Lisa said before, we saw more and more tourists, but we saw the spending have flattened. So we have to understand that doing the same old thing and hoping to return to normalcy, at least when it comes to tourism, is not gonna be a long-term solution for what our economy needs. Going back to at least that comment, I do think we really need to not market Hawaii or over-market Hawaii in a way that says, yes, just come because flights are cheap and we have the best beaches. Come because you want to experience some of the things that make Hawaii unique. Its culture, its food, its people, right? And those things are important to market. And I think it'll work no matter where you are. That's going to still be a good pitch because Hawaii is so unique, it's so isolated. But we can't just churn money out and expect that the same marketing that brought tourists here is going to be the same. We need to show them something, an alternative to that, show them that we're a high-end vacation spot, places for weddings, and some of those things are still here, but really heighten that and also show them, hey, we have a uniqueness that can't be put in writing that says, it's a feeling, and you're only going to get that if you come here.
So to Mr. Chock, let's ask you this as well. I'm talking about a possible major reset, restructuring tourism in the area, whether you want to put it in the context of COVID or just moving forward. Your thoughts?
No, so obviously COVID just exposed how sensitive tourism can be here and how fragile it really is in a case that something as small as like a virus, I mean, it's not small, but I mean, you can just shut everything down. I mean, we saw it coming, a possibility of something like this coming, but nobody really took it to be something serious because it doesn't happen all that frequently. But given the circumstances, we see now more than ever that we need to diversify our economy. We can't rely on tourists. We need to bring high-valued tourists here, but at the same time, we need to look at other types of industries here as well. As I mentioned earlier, renewable energy and the tech industry would be a big one for me here because we have all of the natural resources for like wind, hydro power, solar, whatnot, but we don't have other natural resources that we can just harvest and export. So we need to focus on tech and other things that we can be industrious and inventive here in our island.
All right, and so to you, Mr. Grimmer, as well, when you think about Joel's question here and looking at the effects of COVID, where we're talking about sea turtles coming back or the beaches a little more open, or your thoughts on how you'd want to reset, restructure if we feel we need that in the area of Kailua or the state?
Yes, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to step back and decide how much tourism we want in this state and in Kailua and Waimānalo. And I think for everyone I've talked to, the answer is a little bit less in the state and a lot less in Kailua and Waimānalo. So here's my plan. Let's stop the bus drop-offs at our shopping centers, in our neighborhoods, and at our beaches. That will limit the number of tourists we have in Kailua and Waimānalo. And for the state, I propose a $100 arrival tax per tourist. And the reason I want it to be a flat fee instead of a percentage tax like we have on our hotels is that high budget travelers will see that $100 and think, that's what I was going to spend on breakfast, and come anyway. And the budget travelers will see that and think, that's what I was going to spend on my flight, and maybe look somewhere else. So we'll raise a lot of money from that tax that we can use for any of our priorities, including environmental reconstruction, and we'll slightly lower the number of tourists we get in the state while greatly skewing the amount of tourists we get towards the higher spending tourists who create more jobs and more economic benefit.
All right, so to you, Dr. Marten, as well, talking about how we're looking at what's happened and how we need to think about tourism.
Well, our vacation rental industry is the low spending tourists. So if we want to target a higher spending tourists, that's not the industry that will help us. But absolutely, we need to diversify. Hawaii is so amazing. And with COVID, we have, it's heightened. Another thing we have to offer is we are this beautiful tropical paradise that happens to have first, rate medical care. In addition to that, we have our interesting host culture, and we have, sports opportunities. We have things here that we can offer, and if we try to do a more niche, higher-end marketing for our tourism, where we can offer them an exclusive, unique experience that is not 2,000 people going up and down the Pillbox Trail, completely eroded like a highway, but give them, a more unique, exclusive experience, then they'll be willing to pay for it. And that is how we balance our carrying capacity. Even before COVID, we knew that we did not have the carrying capacity. And people in Kailua and Waimānalo are exhausted. We actually fought, Scott was talking about stopping the drop-offs in our neighborhoods and beaches. We already did that. We did that a long time ago. We fought to ban tour buses and tours and kayak companies from operating in those places, first in Kailua, and then Waimānalo followed.
Actually, we have not stopped them. They're still coming in all the time, and you can ask any resident of Kailua and Waimānalo. The drop-offs are still happening. We need to enforce it. That's what I'm talking about. We don't just pass the law, we enforce it, and we certainly haven't stopped them dropping off at our shopping centers. They happen at Kailua Town Center, Alexander and Baldwin property, every single day when we have tourists on the island. So that's what I'm talking about, stopping those drop-offs and enforcing it.
But we stop the buses. That doesn't mean more people aren't going to rent cars, and now we have more cars coming in. So I don't think the buses and the enforcement is necessarily going to stop people from coming to Kailua and Waimānalo. And if we're going to have tourists, we want them to come and spend money in our community versus on the west side or in other areas. But we want to have balance. We want to make sure that the community that's living there in Kailua and Waimānalo don't feel they're outnumbered by tourists. And I think we all agree on that, but how do we do it? Just simply banning the buses doesn't mean that that's going to create 30 more cars that come into our community instead.
All right, so
it's really different. The buses going into Kailua Town, that's private property. That is legal. It was different going into the neighborhoods, and we have stopped those. Maybe you weren't here when to experience what it was like before.
Well, I've seen a lot of
but it was pretty
dropping
overwhelming.
off.
No doubt, another hot topic. So let me pivot here a little bit. We have enough time to do a little bit of a pivot, going from people coming here to people who are already here and having a difficult time. And we're talking about our homeless population. And so whether we're talking about, we've got a couple of questions just asking about the homeless in the area, whether we're talking about Kailua, but you're going to be representing on a state level here. Momi from Waimānalo asking about the homeless shelter in Itulu Street in Waimānalo. So just whether we're talking about a shelter or the homeless that are on the streets in the different areas that you're going to have to think about what your perspective is and how you want to deal with that issue. What is your perspective, and how do you feel we should be addressing that, and you would as a state representative, Mr. Chock?
So first and foremost, we need to look at addressing homelessness comprehensively and cohesively across all state departments, county departments, private groups, as well as the community. Auntie Blanche was a big proponent and actually was the reason why the project in Waimānalo got taken care of and why we have homeless living there now. But the issue that occurred there was the state didn't fully back the plan at the time because it was in process 2 years ago, and I was involved in the early stages of the discussion. And as it moved along, it was moving through the state. It was working with the state, and it kind of got rushed at the very end. And the neighbors along that area where the Auntie Blanche's property is aren't too happy with it, primarily because it was just sprung in on them. And it's kind of I don't know, how would you feel if someone just, like 40 people just showed up in your backyard, right? So we need to see that there's leadership that's going to look at how we're going to work together on the city and county level, the state level, as well as the private sector, with the communities to make sure we can address these things together, because the state needs to be more active in getting more social workers, paying our social workers more. The county needs to make sure they can focus on policing and not having police do our homeless camps, because police aren't social workers. And then we need to, most importantly, work with our nonprofits and the community who's being involved in any projects with the homeless as well.
So we've got about 5 minutes left, and so I want to give you a chance to answer this question, but to have some closing remarks as well. So if you can answer briefly about the homeless issue and what your stance is on that, we'll turn to you, Dr. Marten.
Okay, well, I'm super interested in that issue, and it's not something that I had background in. And so since I decided to run, I've been cooking for and feeding the homeless. You give someone a hot meal, they will talk to you. And just to understand the issues better, I do support the project that they're talking about. I've been very proactively supporting it. I think it's actually a great model for how to deal with some of our homeless problems here in Hawaii. I would like to see the state as more of a partner and not asking community members to jump through hoops that are hard for them in the permitting process, to be more of a partner in that process. What Auntie Blanche has done is extraordinary. She got a bunch of people off the street or off the beach park and the street into a safe setting with communal rules. They all have IDs. They were counted in the census. They're registered to vote. They are receiving services. They all got COVID testing. You know, so that's the kind of model we want. We want that community partnership, and we want to support them. Kahumana is taking over the old Weinberg Village.
We have only a few minutes left, so I'm going to make sure that I get to everyone here.
And I support that as well. A different model, but you know, to have different kinds to complement each other is wonderful.
And to you, Mr. Akao, if you want to address the homeless issue or also some final thoughts.
Sure. I think one of the things about homeless is they're people. You know, we like to characterize them as homeless. We give them that label. And one way we can stop doing that is stop criminalizing them. We have so many laws on the books that make it a crime to sleep on the beach, to sleep on the sidewalk. We need to stop treating them like they're criminals and putting this label that homeless means bad. There's so many more issues going on: mental health, substance abuse, financial and economic factors. A lot of these people don't want to be on the streets. They don't want to be somewhere where they don't feel safe. And even shelters aren't enough. We need housing options, and even affordable housing is not affordable for them. We need wraparound services and shelters, and the community to feel invested. But it's about time the government gets invested. The community shouldn't have to bear this alone, but we've taken it up because it's our own people. It's our community, and we're not going to let them sleep on the beach.
And to you, Mr. Grimmel.
There are a few things we need to do right away. The state needs to keep supporting the Aloha United Way and other charities that are providing temporary rental assistance to people who've lost their jobs during the coronavirus pandemic, because we can't afford new homeless people right now. It'll be so traumatic for the people involved, and it'll be more expensive to get them out of homelessness later. We need our federal law that bans cities from sending homeless on a one-way ticket somewhere else, because Hawaii's been a dumping ground for the mainland's homeless for too long. And then we've got to get individualized. Not a one-size-fits-all, but a person-by-person approach that offers drug treatment, mental health treatment, or if it's just a little economic assistance to get people back on their feet. And finally, if anyone is out there and they won't accept our help and they are threatening or harassing our communities, we've got to get them off the streets for the safety of everyone.
And since we didn't quite get to closing remarks all the way around, maybe about 20 seconds each for you, Mr. Chock, and also for Ms. Marten.
I know, thank you, PBS, and for putting this together for all of us to Talk story a little bit today. And thank you to all the viewers for joining us and learning more about the candidates running for Representative Chris Lee's seat. As representative, I would want to make sure that we look out for our local families, our working class, and our keiki. So importantly now, we need to look out.
I'm going to have to make it short for everyone briefly, Dr. Marten.
Okay, I guess I would just like to say thanks for this opportunity. I do want to represent Kailua because, I'm from there. I've raised my children there. I went to public school there. My parents are aging there. It's a community that I've already been fighting for. I've been working there on environmental issues, health issues, community issues, trying to protect it, and I would just like to take it to another level.
Thank you. And really, I think we pretty much have to wrap it up from there. So thank you to all of you for being here tonight. Mahalo for joining us. And we thank our guests, the Democratic candidates for State House District 51, Lisa Marten and Ellen Akao. Thank you for being here, as well as Scott Grimmer and Coby Chock also for joining us. All right, next week on Insights, our election 2020 coverage continues with State House District 20, which covers St. Louis Heights, Palolo, Maunalani Heights, Wilhelmina Rise, and Kaimuki. We're going to hear from 4 Democrats trying to move on to the general election, so please join us then. I'm Laurie Amata for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Hui hou.